modular platform to integrate with the authority's existing processes and workflows to manage the entire program and project lifecycle. Once fully implemented, the authority staff would have the historical data across planning, projects, and financials in one system, providing improved communication, higher collaboration, and real-time access to project performance. So eBuilder provides the flexible pricing to accommodate the authority's needs, and we're kind of taking a phased implementation approach to this and allowing the system to kind of grow over time to kind of meet the authority's needs. And the software is available as a service and subscription model, which is a very common model with software applications. The initial subscription would provide 100 users accounts and annual maintenance. The one-time implementation services provides for implementation, setup, deployment, and training of authority staff. And the annual software subscription and one-time implementation services is about $150,000 and $161,000 respectively, for a total agreement value of roughly $312,000. So staff is seeking authorization for the chair to execute agreement number 512 with eBuilder in the amount not to exceed $312,283, approve a contingency in the amount of $52,717 for a total budget value of $375,000, and delegate authority to the negotiate and execute amendments within the contingency to the executive director and designee. And cost for eBuilder will be funded through reducing the not to exceed amount agreement number 435 with Stantec Consulting by $375,000 to fund the agreement number 512. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell.
Thank you. I know you've run these numbers. I'm having a little problem here. Why don't we just make the contract amount for $375,000?
Because the actual agreement with eBuilder is $312, and so the contingency is actually not part of the contract. It's at our discretion as staff to add more dollars to the contract if required.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm just not. That's either, if I do my math right, it's either 17% or 14%. So what kind of contingencies did just cost overrun and normal course of doing business?
Well, as we're going through the implementation process, right now the contract actually has us identifying 5 workflows, and so eBuilder staff and implementation team will help us build out those workflows. And so as we're going, the intent of the training is to actually train staff here, so that way we don't have to have eBuilder staff, here on site all the time helping us. And so as we're going through that process and then we're working through the authority processes, we may need additional budget maybe to add another workflow or
okay, so that's what the contingency.
Add another workflow.
It's not like the normal X amount of a contract and 10% of it is kept or 20% of it is kept for contingency. The work we believe will cost $312, but as you're moving forward, you may identify additional things to add to the scope of work.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Roman.
A few questions. We have existing software from other vendors out there right now. Do you plan to integrate that with eBuilder? How tightly will that integration happen? And the concern I have is when you create disparate systems from one vendor to another vendor, and you go to update one vendor's software, you're either forced to update the existing all the other software packages that you have, or in a truly integrated system where it's all from one vendor, and you're addressing all your disciplines that you need. It's a lot easier that. So the concern is if we're integrating with other software vendors, and we need to upgrade one of those other vendors, how easily will that work with the software we're getting from eBuilder? I mean, that is critical because if you're stuck and if you can't upgrade because of either hardware limitations, hardware, everything changes so quickly right now. There'll be restrictions on servers you can run on, how much space and how much disk drives, how much disk space you need, how fast it needs to be, and you don't want to get stuck with some software that will prevent you from upgrading eBuilder in the future because you're stuck with this old piece of software that can only run on a Windows 7 environment instead of a Windows 10 or something like that.
So I guess two things. One is, and I actually have Trent Hogan in the audience from eBuilder to help us with this question. But two things is, eBuilder was a really interesting part about their platform is they have this app exchange system where they've been very successful with other agencies and other platforms to do a seamless integration with other applications without having to change anything, such like our Tyler financial system. We don't want to touch that whatsoever. We want to leave that as is and basically do more of an integration with eBuilder versus with Tyler. And then the other thing is part of our annual subscription, we actually do get updates of eBuilder on a quarterly basis to be able to adapt to any changes that might be happening in terms of versions with what the apps that we're exchanging with or with eBuilder itself.
Right, and my concern is with those quarterly updates that your other software is going to be tightly integrated enough that it's not going to stop you from upgrading. So if you're forced by eBuilder to go to a bigger and faster server,
I don't know.
okay. I mean, the buzzword out there, I mean, not the buzzword for some time out there in application software is ERPs, or there's ERPs. I mean, I'm trying to remember what the acronym stands for. So basically, it's a tightly integrated system that provides you all the software that you need. And so you don't run into problems of trying to integrate different vendors with the software you're running, and it doesn't prevent you from upgrading when you need to, upgrading all your packages. Go ahead and take a seat. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me, and thanks for considering us. So it's a good question. What Tim was describing there is this app exchange concept. So we're not writing code connecting to applications. It's a piece, essentially, an easy way to think about it is a middleware. We're mapping
Can you
data.
move the mic over so we can hear better?
Thank you. We're mapping data, essentially. So we're just pushing and pulling data. In the example of Tyler and financial systems, which is an ERP system, an enterprise resource planning system, your accounting,
Right,
and
yeah.
right? You're pulling, most likely you'll be just pushing data from that system through a middleware piece and mapping it into the fields in
Okay.
eBuilder. So the question's a good one, but we support that integration piece for you, and there is no, upgrades aren't affected because
Right.
of this middleware piece.
Right, because of middleware
That's
people, I
right.
can go ahead and do everything I want to with
That's right.
Tyler, and I don't have to, even if I'm stuck running on a Windows 7 or 6 system or whatever, or 7s,
Yeah.
I can go ahead and upgrade eBuilder on a different system, different hardware, whatever, and you do, and it's that middleware piece in there that
It's
solves
like-
that communication, that linkage between
That's right.
data.
What would be affected by contrast would be maybe you change your account code structure. So
Right.
what we would call, where we were pulling from to mirror those account codes, for example, if you change your chart of accounts and we have nothing to map to, then that would be, but that's more of a business process issue than it is a technology issue.
Sure.
So,
I mean, I work in IT.
got it.
Yeah, and so,
But you didn't remember what ERP
P was, I keep forgetting, I know I've been dealing with a homegrown ERP for 40 years right now, and
Yeah.
I've sort of just blocked it out because it's such a headache
Yeah.
with what that means. And then, once again, we have 20 employees, what do we need 100 license for? Because the price is based on the number of licenses we have, and 100 seems, unless we're going to open it up to bidders and vendors and whatever else there to have access through this eBuilder program, would be the only reason I see why we need that many users.
So the eBuilder program is supposed to be this collaborative environment that we're working with. So it's not just intended just for internal purposes only, but it's also to collaborate with our local agency partners. So like a good example of that is like with the quarterly project status reports. You know, we have to send out the QPSR, the Word doc, out to the cities to update their projects. And so if we can do that through eBuilder and make it into a workflow, it'd be way more efficient. And then eBuilder would automatically generate the QPSRs. So that's one example. And then the other example would be consultants, contractors, Caltrans. So there'll be it's going to be an environment where we're collaborating on our projects in eBuilder.
Right, well.
Commissioner Trotter, followed by Audrey.
Thank you, and I may have cut somebody off. I don't know if Kevin needs to turn off his mic.
Oh, were you finished? I'm sorry.
So, quick disclosure,
apologize.
unlike Kevin, I do not work in IT. And so I have a different kind of question for you, Tim. I'm looking at the staff report, and we're taking the money to fund this new agreement with eBuilder out of a previous contract with Stantec for $375,000, reducing that amount. And I guess my question is there something about what we're doing here that will supplant the need for services from Stantec, or is this just a case of money management?
It's actually both. One is
So
that-
a lay explanation, a non-IT explanation of that would be very helpful, because I learned a new word just now, middleware. I'm going to use that tomorrow. So new term, thank you. We love the way in which the high-tech industry has become a lexicon for the rest of us. Thank you.
Commissioner Arnold.
Tim, thank you.
I didn't get my answer.
Yeah, so the answer to your question is actually both, Commissioner Trotter. One is it's money management, and then it's also efficiencies in the project control side. So we do have, in the Stantec contract, we do have monies in there to help us with project controls and managing the software. For example, when we have our monthly meetings to talk about project status, there's a lot of effort that goes into preparing for those monthly meetings in terms of pulling in information from all these different systems to create the reports. And so the idea is to make that more efficient, and so we would be using both project controls money and also money management.
And we're taking some services away from Stantec to do this. And they're on board for this?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Thank you.
Tim, a little bit on that same line. First of all, I think it's a great idea, but obviously all of our consultants that do project management and stuff, who's going to train them to use this? Is that built into this cost? And also for the cities, the other agencies that you want to report, in order for them to log on, the person on the other end needs to know how to use this software, because it's not used in, that I'm aware of, any of the other cities around.
So, yes, we would be able to train staff and train city staff as well as part of this.
So is
we-
that included in this budget
Yes,
to do so?
there's a training program included in the contract.
Okay. And just as an idea of, for a typical person who has some basic computer skill, how long does it take to learn this system? To be able to do the reporting?
Jared, Mike.
So 2 hours of training per person at a user level.
So,
Yeah.
so if we could teach Dave in 2 hours, this is a good system. But if this is a 20-hour system, the reality is, I just worry. Obviously, our in-house people we can control, but the people on the outside, if this system, I mean, I'd be amazed if it's 2 hours. But success is based on how easy it is to use. Otherwise, people will start to use it and say, I don't have time for this. And they'll keep falling back to the way they're doing it. So have any of you used this system yet? Any of our staff?
So none of us here has used the software as of yet, but we've actually had some very intimate sit-downs with eBuilder staff to go through how the system works, how it operates. But I also add that eBuilder is actually growing in the Bay Area. The San Mateo project, they're starting to use it with Caltrans. MTC actually uses eBuilder to manage the bridge program. So it's actually growing in terms of the Bay Area, in terms of users and knowledge about how to use the software.
Have you actually talked to them, any of those users, how long it took to develop that? Because I have to tell you, we've done in a couple of agencies I've been, we spent $1.5 million on a software system. It took a year to integrate it. The training was pretty intense, and it was supposed to be 8 hours of training, which turned out to be 40 hours of training across the board. So the success of this is really, what's the track record? Do we know what it is? The other agencies, what would they tell you, how long it's taking their staff to do that, to get up to speed?
I don't know the answer to that question in terms of the training aspect.
It's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, I support this, but I'll be honest, if you were going to bring this to us, I would expect that to have been done, because you're asking to make a decision here which is going to affect our agencies without having a conversation with them. And for us to say, yes, we need to know what's going to be the success on that side. And, some of us have staff that are overloaded. I mean, absolutely overloaded. To add one more thing to the plate. So I would support this, but I have a caveat. If this turns out to be 20, 30, 40 hours for people to learn this is not a great investment at this point in time.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Taylor, followed by Roma.
And where I was going to lead up following Commissioner Newell there was also, we don't need to spend the whole $375,000. Am I correct? In other words, that's not our goal with eBuilder. If we can do it obviously cheaper, right? Right? I need a yes or no.
Yeah.
It's $325,000.
The actual agreement is $312,000.
Or 312.
Yeah, so we're not going to, if we don't have to spend the whole 375, we would
Or-
not spend the whole 375, but
Yeah.
the actual agreement is for 312,000. And-
Okay, guess what I'm getting at? Through the training and through the exercise of who we're gonna spend this money on, I'm for the system because I'm pretty sure it'll probably be tried and proven. But also, with that being said, anything we can do, if it's a 2-hour training system, that's fine. 40-hour training system or 20, it could be quite substantial increase in the monies. So, and so I'll drop it, but that's kind of where I was going to lead with is how much money we're really going to spend and where could that go?
Okay. Commissioner Roma.
Yeah, I know what training's like, having to work with new users and bring in new software. We're not replacing software that people are already using right now, are we? We're giving them access to that they currently don't have. So there's going to be an incentive to learn the product right now in order to better integrate with what we're doing at CCTA. So there's an incentive on the user part. Those who want to be better integrated with what we're doing are going to want to use the product and are going to take the time. This isn't change. This is introducing change. You know, if we were taking away an existing system and retraining them on a new system, that's where the difficulties really come in the training area. When you're training on somebody on something that's brand new and they never had it before, they can't say, oh, gee, this isn't how it worked before, make it work like it did before. And I think that's where a lot of training issues comes in IT, is replacing the existing system. And since we're not replacing an existing system, we're introducing a brand new system, it'll be a lot easier for people to grab hold of as opposed to the change that everybody hates. And so, like I say, and if we're giving them something new that they currently don't have access to, they're going to be invested in and more likely to grasp and understand and want to use the product instead of just walking away from it and saying, I'm not going to use it because I don't like it. Everybody hates change. Everybody hates any time you tell them I'm going to change your software. I've been threatened by VPs that if you ever update Office on me again, I'm going to fire you. So I understand the reluctance to change, but I really don't think you're going to find the resistance out there to introducing something new. And I support anything we can do to get people more integrated and more connected to what we're doing here is going to be a benefit for everyone.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move the item with a request that staff report back in 6 months after the purchase and/or implementation to give us an idea of how it's going.
Second, and I would also, just if we could, just to be a little admission, validate the sales pitch by calling up end users and asking them what they learned. I would do it tomorrow, even though you're getting the authorization here. Find out the lessons they have, try to plan that, and just in the future, absolutely we should do that.
So in terms of the independent validation, we have done that. I didn't ask a specific question about training. We've talked to MTC, we've talked to San Mateo, we've actually talked to independent consultants, we've talked to, in fact, we had a consultant here today that was recommending eBuilder. We had other independent consultants recommending eBuilder outside of actual Trimble and eBuilder. So there was a lot of support in terms of when we were doing our actual evaluation. We got a lot of independent evaluation, and we were asking the really hard questions about, what are the pitfalls? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? How hard is it to use? And what's interesting is like MTC staff and the folks that we have talked to, all positive remarks, very easy to use. It was intuitive, and it's in
Remember, these are.
the integration time is basically a 3-month integration time versus like a 1 year. So we did do our homework in terms of touching base with independent consultants and other agencies in terms of how they like the software and how it works.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor by Mitchell. Could you, I know, we have 2 speakers prior to the vote, but I would like the motion repeated.
I move that we authorize the execution of agreement number 512 with eBuilder for an integrated capital program management system with the request that staff report back no greater than 6 months out as to how it's working.
Okay, and that was seconded by Unrich. On the question, we have Commissioner Trotter, followed by Pierce.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been listening very carefully to the conversation here up at the dais. Has been very educational. And the observation that Newell made about how some cities are basically, bursting at the seams, have more work than they can handle. Some towns like Moraga have, 33 to 35 FTEs covering the entire town, and a engineering staff that's basically understaffed. And so I'm asking what I would hope would be a serious question, and maybe it could be added on to this motion, and that is, does the authority have budget to provide financial assistance to cities who are going to incur costs to become participants in this eBuilder platform? Because this is not free to the cities. This is going to, you are taking money out of our pockets to actually implement this, whether it's in staff time or in out-of-pocket expenditures or what have you. And it seems to me that if we have budget, we should also be giving direction to staff to come back not in 6 months, but in a month, and say, what is the staff's recommendation on providing financial assistance to cities for the costs that you're asking the cities to undertake, and to come up with some kind of an outreach to figure out what that number might be countywide. And I'd like to suggest that as an amendment to the existing motion.
How about if we, can we refer this to the RTPCs to see if they have money in their budgets to assist? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, he asked me to change the
Well,
motion.
so two things. One is we do have budget for training in terms of training. So our goal was to train 1 to 2 people at the cities to help understand how to use the software and be users of the software in terms of the overall program.
Taking them away from their other duties.
So we're not necessarily adding more work. This is intended to make things more efficient and make the process that we have today with the agencies to be more efficient. It's not intended to make things more difficult or add work.
I understand intent. I'm talking reality.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from Randy on this subject of budget.
Yeah, I don't think we have other than a training budget, we don't have a budget to augment staff for this effort. I think that one of the issues.
I'm talking payments.
Yeah.
Payments to cities for the cost of integrating
You can,
with this.
yeah, so there's no budget to allow for more staff time to fill out more forms. We get asked to fill out forms all the time, and we're cognizant of the extra work that it places on you. You can always do it the old way. You're doing it now, so your staff is getting a Word document. They're modifying that Word document and sending it back to us. And then we're compiling that. The idea is for them to put the information, same information on a piece of paper in a software package, ship it electronically back to us, and then we aggregate it all together. We could still do it this old way. We can actually do it by hand. That's not a problem, because you're doing it anyway. Right now, all these QPSRs, you're updating for every one of your projects that are Measure J funded. That's the requirement. So we can continue to do it the old way. It's up to the cities or in towns. If they don't want to do it electronically, we can do it by hand.
Commissioner Pierce, followed by Tatson.
I was just going to comment that on page 4.1-14, there is a chart that gives us what some of the expected training is, and these are day-long sessions, 2-day-long sessions with multiple trainees at each one, and it seems to me that there's a lot built in already as being planned for. And so I think if some cities are really interested in getting into the online integration and collaboration, they will make the time to send their employees to do the training. Yes, they might have to be away from their desk at the city to do that, but if it makes things more efficient and they don't have to do it by hand in the future, then it seems to me they're saving time in the long run. So I'm all in favor of this.
Commissioner, so let me add something to that, because that's a great point, Commissioner Pierce. Is you may want to use this if you have, let's say, a big bridge project you're going to oversee in the future, and you want to make sure that your schedules are set properly and all your information is set up so that your staff can track progress on that bridge design and then ultimately in construction. And so there may be an added incentive to get somebody prepared to deal with that, because you may have a bridge you might want to replace or build in the near future, and it's going to have to go through design. And so you can do it the normal way and not have great information at your fingertips, or you can provide the training to put the information into a tracking system, an e-builder system in this case, to help make sure your staff tracks the progress of the project, the payouts, to make sure your earned value is in the neighborhood. So you can track progress as an elected official in the town of Moraga. So it's not just about updating QPSRs. I think there's a benefit in the future with other projects that are larger than, let's say, a paving project or something like that.
Okay, Commissioner Tatson?
So my experience with IT system implementation is not as recent as Commissioner Romik's, but it does date back several decades ago. But my recollection at the time was that among the user community, you would have early adopters, fast followers, and people who sort of got to it later on in terms of their interest. And I know that the authority staff has been very good in terms of holding seminars and educational sessions for city engineering staff. And it may be that if we put this out to them, you will find some cities where the engineering staffs will be eager to do this, and maybe we let them be the examples so they can sort of self-select. And the communities that choose to come along more slowly will have the benefit of the experience that have been gained by the early adopters. I would hope in my case that our city would be among an early adopter, and I'll probably talk to our new city engineer later this week about it.
Okay, so any other comments, questions? So there's a motion before us and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes. We will now move to the next item on the agenda. This was an item seeking approval to award the I-680 State Route 4 interchange improvement. This is a Phase 3 project, and this item will be presented by Ivan Ramirez.
Committee chairs, commissioners, thank you. This is an action item in relation to the project that the chair mentioned, where we're asking for approval of resolution 1859P, which will reject the bid submitted by Flatiron as non-responsive, reject the bid protest submitted by Flatiron as meritless, and award the contract to Bessemer as the lowest responsible bidder, submitting a responsive bid in the amount of $86,305,702.81. So I'm going to give you some details about the project. It was advertised on July 12, 2018. We advertised for a period of 7 weeks, The bid opened on August 29th. The engineer's estimate was 80 million plus, which means that the bid is higher than the engineer's estimate. And we issued 6 different addendums. So as I go to my presentation, I want to highlight something that the board adopted on May 17 of 2017 board meeting, where you asked staff to use electronic bidding. And I want to read a couple of passages of the intent of what you wished. It says, with the goal of increasing efficiency, responsiveness, cost savings, convenience, and reduce risk and errors associated with the use of paper-based bid processes for the authority and the contractors submitting bids. Staff seeks authorization to implement a cloud-based electronic bid process. Further along in the staff report, it says, errors are common as contractors negotiate and receive bids from their subcontractors until moments before their bid. So in my presentation, you will see that this particular problem was addressed with the bidding electronic system that you approve us to use, which, by the way, is an offshoot of the program that Caltrans and other Department of Transportation use. And the feedback that I have gotten almost completely is that the bidders love this program. So it has never been an issue when we implemented it. In fact, they're very grateful that we have. So this is a summary of the bids. Rank number 1 is Flatiron West, and you see all the bidders up to number 9. At the bottom, you see UTC, which is Coordinated Universal Time, which is in the old days Greenwich Mean Time, back in England. And our bid is the Pacific Standard Time plus 7 hours. So when you look at the table there and the column that says time submitted, the bid time, the UTC bid time is 21 hours, 21,000 hours. And as you can see there, most of the bidders allow themselves enough time to submit the bids. And those times, by the way, are after any possible errors were corrected, because, as I will show you in a future slide, only 2 bidders, the system only indicated that 2 bidders have an issue, and I will also talk about what those were. As you can see there, Flatiron allowed themselves only 17 seconds, and maybe that says a lot as to why we're here, that they did not allow themselves enough time to have the opportunity to correct the error that they ultimately ended up submitting with their bid. So again, this is the bid submission tab that comes to staff immediately after the bids are submitted. And there were 2 indications that the bidding software gave us. Also, there's indications that the bidding system gave us that 2 contractors had possible errors. However, there's a big distinction between Gelati's construction company's errors and Flatiron's. What happened with Gelati was that the program asks you to increase the number of rows for each subcontractor. So what ended up happening is Gelati put too many rows, and they had some left over when they put the contractor's information, the subcontractor's information. So the system noticed those additional rows, and they noticed that they were empty, and they flagged it as an error. But ultimately, there is no error because there was no information to put. It was just something that they added extra rows. As it comes to Flatiron, on the other hand, you will see that their error is actually significant. I want to also address some of the issues with errors that the electronic system picks up. So in this case, where you see the column that has name and location and contractor's license number, so if you have a misspell, or you miss the state or the city where the contractor comes from, or you have an error with the digits of the license number, it wouldn't pick that error because it accepts the fact that it has some information in there, so therefore it just accepts that it's correct. So on the other hand, when in that stripe of yellow and the circle red, that's information that is actually missing. And the electronic software system indicated that. So it's something that the system worked and the software worked as we would expect it to work. So staff has prepared a video to indicate, to show the board members what a bidder will look when they have errors and how simple it will be for them to correct those errors. So I'm going to play that right now. What happened? Hold on a second. It's right here. There you go. Right?
This is what Flatiron would have seen prior to submitting their bid. When a contractor goes to submit an incomplete bid, a window stating this bid is incomplete, choose OK to submit the bid anyway appears. Also, notice the navigation bar shows the listing of subcontractors in red, indicating that there is an error in this section. If the bidder selects cancel, the Bid Express page automatically takes the bidder to the error. The red numbers shown at the bottom notes that there's an error on both of these pages in the listing of the subcontractors. In seconds, you can eliminate these errors. Once these simple corrections have been made, Bid Express offers the bidder the ability to run a quick check by selecting the button titled Check Bid. If the bid is complete, a confirmation window will appear. After that, select Submit Bid, and you're done.
And that box is just the electronic signature that will certify the bid, and it will come to us as submitted. So Flatiron recognized that they had an error. They submitted a letter the following day, I believe it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and they allege inadvertent omission. But in reality, what happened is they knowingly submitted an incomplete bid, as the system alerted them there was missing information. So the analysis that we did and the recommendation that we come forward with tonight is based on what we have here on these slides, is that Flatiron failed to submit a bid that complied with the bid book and the standard specifications requirements regarding the listing of the percentage or work for listed subcontractors at the time of bid. All the other bidders, as demonstrated in the previous slide, submitted it correctly. There were no missing subcontractors' percentage of work. Flatiron knowingly submitted an incomplete bid. So in reference to some of the arguments that Flatiron has made, it says, this bullet addresses that. It says the authority has discretion under Public Contract Code Section 4104(8)(3) to allow bidders to submit information within 24 hours of bid opening. The authority already chose not to allow the bidders this option based on the plain language of the specifications, which I will show here in the next slide. Notwithstanding the clear provisions of the law and the contract specifications, Flatiron insists the authority is obligated to accept the subcontractor information they submitted after the bid deadline. So in addition to them not submitting it timely as described in the contract, it gives Flatiron an opportunity to do some bid shopping, and by doing so, they gain a competitive advantage by allowing them to withdraw their bid without risking losing their bid security, which is 10% of the value of the contract. So here is the Public Contract Section 4104. If you look at subsection B, it talks about the information that's required within 24 hours and what it's allowed to be. It doesn't matter. You definitely can have to accept information, but that is in relation to other things other than the subcontractor's work. And it's stated there, a state or local agency may implement subparagraph A at its option. The authority chose not to implement the ability for bidders to submit subcontractors' information after the bid deadline pursuant to the plain language of the contract specifications. Here's the language in the bid book. The authority requires that all subcontractor information be submitted at the time of bid. No time extensions will be allowed to submit the required information. This is also part of the standard specifications. The subcontractor's list form must show portion of work it will perform, show the portion of the work by percentage of the subcontractor work for each bid item listed. So we also want to address the protest that Flatiron submitted against Brossomers' bid. And there's two issues that they bring up. Number one is the Equal Employment Opportunity Certification, where Brossomer submitted that they had not had a previous contract or subcontractor subject to the Equal Opportunity Clause. The issue here is that the form, the Equal Employment Opportunity Certification, is required only when you have federal funds. So in essence, this form could have been submitted blank and still be responsive because there are no federal funds in this contract. There are many sections in the contract specifications, in the contracts that we put out, where it clearly says for federal aid contracts, you must do this or you must do that. But you don't take them out. You just, if this is not federal aid contract, then you don't comply with that section of the spec. So this is very similar to what we have in our contracts. So again, any mistake in the EESO form submitted by Brossomer is moot because they could have left it blank and you would have been responsible. The second issue that Flatiron brings up is that Bay City's paving and grading, which is a sub to Brossomer, is listed as a traffic control subcontractor. And the reality is that Bay Cities can perform this work. There's no issue here whatsoever. They can choose to sub it to somebody else. And as long as under the umbrella of Bay Cities, it's fine. So, therefore, we recommend that you reject the protest as meritless. I also want to take a moment to talk about some of the approaches that Flatiron has taken regarding the recommendations that we have made to the board. They talk about favoritism. So this is the list, the last 11 contracts that we have awarded. So while there are some contractors that are definitely based in Contra Costa County, there are many others that are not. If we were known to show favoritism, we wouldn't have 9 bidders coming into our projects. One of our bidders came from LA, Los Angeles, the first time we ever had that. So this table speaks for itself. Another accusation that has been made is that we're showing favoritism in regards to how we transmit information. August 29th is when the bid project was due. Flatiron submits the notice of inadvertent error on the next day. CCTA rejects that and issues a notice of intent to award. Within the timeline, Flatiron submits a bid protest. However, the bid book contains explicit instructions as to how bid protests are to be handled. And it doesn't say you send it to everybody else, like the board members and all staff. It actually goes to Tim Hale. Then we review it and we send it to the people that are being protested. However, Brossomer was also CC'd on that bid protest, so Brossomer responded immediately. Again, there's nothing being shared here in secret. We're following the bid recommendations or the instructions, and we're within them. Brossomer submitted their protest, their response to the protest at the end of the protest period. They issue an initial and then they issue a second one, but just in time for the end of the protest period. Flatiron took that information and then issued another letter. This information that they submitted cannot be contemplated as part of the protest because the protest period ended. So all that other information has to be ignored. Boston, because they were CC, also issued a letter right after, defending themselves. CCTA responds to the bid protest on October 3rd. Flatiron issues another letter to all of you. They're accusing us of not following the public records request. Flatiron asked for one September 14th. We responded on September 21st with the information that we had at hand. The public records request asked us to produce documents that didn't exist yet. So they want an open-ended public records request. Checking with BBK, we have worked hand in hand with them on this entire process. They said that you don't have to produce documents. The law doesn't allow that. They haven't been produced yet. We submitted it before they were due. Flatiron issues a second public records request. They accuse us of not giving them the information that they want, but it doesn't end until Friday. They ask for a lot of information. Staff is taxed. Your time is being consumed. We're incurring fees as a result of their error. So with that, we're asking you to approve Resolution 1859P, which rejects Flatiron's bid as not responsive, reject Flatiron's bid protest as meritless, and awards the contract to Bessemer as the lowest responsible bidder, submitting a responsive bid in the amount of $86,305,702.81.
Okay, thank you. I have a number of speakers. Would you like to hear the speakers first, or? Okay. So our first speaker is going to be Richard Grambinski. I know I probably messed that up pretty good.
No, that was good.
Followed by Sean Golden. Is that okay?
That's good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Richard Grabinski. I'm the Executive Vice President for Flatiron. This is really $1 million issue for you. You can award the job to us and save $1 million, or you can follow staff's recommendation and spend $1 million more. That's what this issue comes down to. You have every right under the Public Contract Code to accept our bid. Earlier this year, we bid a job for a CCTA, the I-680 HOV lane project, your contract number 491. We're the second bidder on that project. We're $30,000 higher than Bay Cities, the low bidder. Bay Cities listed 2 subcontractors to perform the same bid item and had other bid defects, and their bid was non-responsive. Bay Cities then submitted a subcontractor clarification letter within 48 hours of the bid. Flatiron submitted a protest on that bid. Staff recommended to waive the defects in Bay Cities' bid and deny Flatiron's protest. This was about 90 days ago. We didn't pursue that protest any further. We respected CCTA's decision to allow Bay Cities to make a correction to their bid and save the public $30,000 by awarding that contract to them. At the end of the day, Bay Cities was the low bidder, and CCTA used their discretion prudently and saved the taxpayers' money, awarded the contract to Bay Cities. We went back to work and determined to give CCTA our best price on the next project, and we did. On this job, the 684 project, we are low bidder by more than $1 million. But the opposite happened. On this job, we submitted a bid clarification. Yes, we made an error. We're not denying that we did. However, you are allowed under Public Contract Code to accept our clarification letter that fixes our bid. The error that we made did not change our bid price. It did not change any of the subcontractors that we listed. It had no relevance to the outcome of the bid or the fact that Flatiron was the low bidder. The clarification that we submitted did not give Flatiron any advantage whatsoever over any of the other bidders. It was completely immaterial. That's what Bay Cities did when they submitted their bid clarification on the 680 project, and you accepted it. You can accept our low bid, but CCTA is choosing not to, and you're choosing to waste $1 million instead. Staff is ignoring the rationales that's used to justifying accepting Bay City's bid, which was just 90 days ago, and now do not want to apply those same rationales to accept Flatiron's bid. The decision is costing you $1 million if you accept Rosemer's bid.
You should start wrapping up.
Yep, this is a waste of taxpayer money that could be used for other improvements within the county, like a parking lot, or a software program, or bike lanes. That's your decision to save $1 million and award us the contract, which you're allowed to do or not.
Thank you. And I apologize for not giving time restrictions, but we are at 3 minutes per speaker. Okay? And you're Sean. Okay? Sean will be followed by Randolph Finch.
Thank you, Commissioners, and good evening. My name is Sean Golden. I'm the District Manager for Flatiron. I've been bidding Caltrans infrastructure projects for over 16 years now. Tonight, I'd like to address the claim by CCTA staff of the potential bid shopping by Flatiron. This claim is a result of Flatiron submitting a single subcontractor percentage with clarification within 24 hours of the bid. The single percentage was related to our subcontractor, Vanguard Construction, and the traffic control they were performing for their work. On this bid, I was the person directly responsible for communicating with Vanguard throughout the bid process, and I can confirm that there was no such communications between us and Vanguard between the time we submitted the bid and the time we submitted the bid clarification letter. Be completely clear, there was no bid shopping, period. There's proof of that in your packets. Page 46 is a letter from Vanguard. The letter states, Vanguard Construction has reviewed CCTA staff's September 6, 2018 letter to Flatiron concerning its listing of our firm. We strongly disagree with the assertions in the letter. Flatiron's percentage listing for our firm provided within 24 hours of the bid is consistent with the bid day pricing we provided Flatiron. That is the pricing we bid, and that is the pricing we accepted. Flatiron made no attempt whatsoever to bid shop, chisel, etc. There has been no change and will be no change to our pricing since we submitted our bid to Flatiron on bid day. We request CCTA staff leadership reconsider the conclusions in the letter to Flatiron, as those conclusions are wrong. Please feel free to contact me with any future questions or concerns. We verified with Vanguard, CCTA staff has never contacted them to investigate or validate the claim they're making about bid shopping. So tonight, when you guys are making your decision, please ask the staff why they didn't talk to Vanguard about the accusations they're making of us bid shopping. As you know, we've submitted the low bid by over $1 million. Why would you voluntarily give away $1 million? It's a lot of money. We've talked about it. I've heard you guys talk about it. You can use it for other projects, use it for other things. You can save that money simply by awarding the project to Flatiron, the actual low bidder for the project. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Randolph.
Good evening, Commissioners.
He will be followed by Deborah.
My name is Randy Finch. Thank you for listening to me tonight. Over the past 2 decades, I've represented contractors and public agencies in hundreds, literally hundreds of bid protests, including in court cases in the Court of Appeals throughout the state. This is $1 million opportunity for you to save your constituents, those listening at home, those voting on November 6th on important ballot measures. For some reason, staff did not give you all of your options that you have in this matter. They said you can reject all, which you can do with impunity, and they said you can award to Brosmar, but you can also award to Flatiron. There are 3 sections of the Public Contract Code that give you complete and unfettered discretion to do that. They've been cited in numerous legal papers. They're Public Contract Code Sections 4104, 4107.5, and 4106. For some reason, staff skipped that option. They didn't put it on your agendas. They didn't list it for you, but it exists. The opportunity to save $1 million. The staff report also doesn't talk about a very similar, strikingly similar case that was decided in favor of the city of San Diego. They did exactly what Mr. Grabinski has asked you to do. They awarded to the low bidder. They saved their taxpayers $1 million. The trial court said no challengeable claim by the second bidder. The three-justice appellate court unanimously found there's no basis to set aside the bid and the savings of $1 million. For some reason, it's not in your packet. They didn't discuss it, didn't include it in their write-up. There's also great disparity here. Just 90 days ago, that Bay Cities bid happened. Just 90 days ago. And there were two issues in that bid. They didn't list, they listed the same subcontractor for two different scopes of work. An error. They tried to clarify it within 24 hours. They could have. But staff said, no, we're going to set aside not only those irregularities that Bay Cities called out, but additional issues. Why disparity? Why not do the same thing? You saved money there, and you can save $1 million here. $1 million still matters. I've never seen such a defensive staff report at a bid protest commissioner hearing. It's an advocacy for a second bidder. It's an advocacy for you to spend $1 million more on a job that is already over your engineer's estimate. I encourage you to ask the staff, can we reject all bids? Ask your general counsel, can we award to Flatiron? Flatiron is ready to do the job and save you $1 million. Thank you for your time. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good evening. My name is actually Deborah Wilson, and I am outside counsel for Brosmer and Wall Inc. And I've been involved in the area for over 20 years of public contracts, public contract code, and bid protests. I've been involved in handling challenges to bid protests. And the staff report, we believe, provides a lawful and proper analysis of the California law that governs rejection of non-responsive bids. And there's been many statements that we strongly believe are just not true. There's no option here for the authority to accept the bid, to allow them to cure their information 24 hours later. As the staff analysis shows, that option is contradicted by the agencies, the authorities' contract provisions, which require that the information be provided at the time of bid, and no time extensions will be provided. I heard that there was a case that was not discussed in staff report. However, it clearly was. The West Coast case out of San Diego was discussed in the staff report. That case was based on different specifications. That in that case, the public agency was allowed to use that option because they had not affirmatively stated no time extensions would be allowed. That case has not been published, so it has no binding precedents in California. The other options also are not applicable that council mentioned were available. There was no failure to list a contractor. They did list a subcontractor to perform the work, and they claimed there was a clerical error, and they were not allowed an additional time to submit that information to correct it. So we support the staff report's determination to reject the bid protest of Flatiron and to award the contract to Brosimer and Wall. Thank you.
Thank you. That is my last speaker card. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commissions? Seeing none, we'll bring this back to the commissions. Is there any submission? Questions?
So, Commissioner, the issue of missing information, subcontractor work. So on the, yeah, I know, because I thought nobody heard me. You hear me? So I'm going to speak loud. Commissioner, on the specific issue of missing subcontractor information, that has never come to this board. We have never waived such error. There are some errors that have been waived because they are meritless. They're not consequential to the bid. There are other ones because the public contract code allows certain things. So the example that Mr. Finch brings up, for instance, public contract code allows if you have two bidders doing the same work, then the prime contractor has to perform that work. It's clearly stated there. So to answer your question, Commissioner, the answer is no. We've been very consistent, and furthermore, I believe that it's the first time where we have a situation where the bidding system actually warned the bidders that there was this missing information. And they overrode it because the presumption is that in the past everybody corrected their errors because we've never seen this before.
Right, so that was my next question. Boy, that's working now. That it was clear when they submitted 17 seconds before, the person doing it had to make a decision to ignore it and submit it because there wouldn't have been enough time to make the correction. And that's what you've determined in analyzing this?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Right. So as an old bidder, I know exactly what times are. He who waits to the last minute absolutely ends up in these circumstances. It's a hard lesson because Flatiron is a great company. We've been wanting Flatiron to do work for us for a long time. But I want to make sure, though, overall, and the way we're looking at this, and going forward, should this happen again exactly under these circumstances, doesn't make any difference who's first, second, or third. We would handle this and interpret it in exactly the same way based on our specifications.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. I appreciate it. And again, it's an unfortunate circumstance. We can say somebody's trying to tell us that we're wasting taxpayers' money. Somebody else has wasted taxpayer money. Waiting 17 seconds to turn in a $90 million, $80 million bid is wasting a company's resources, $100,000 worth of labor to put a bid together like this. And to get down to 17 seconds, that's unfortunate. And we don't make good decisions under those circumstances. But I appreciate staff's recommendation and your analysis.
Commissioner Trotter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for staff, and Randy, you can chime on this as well. Mr. Finch brought up the situation with Bay Cities 90 days ago. did that bid package include this language that the staff is now relying upon that says we're not going to allow late submitted changes, or was there a change in our bid package between now and then?
That portion of the contract is the same. However, and I have to rely on memory, but I can tell you that contract was federal aid. So with federal aid contracts, there's some information that can be submitted later. So I don't have memory at the top of my head other than a quick look at the staff report, but the specific section of the language is the same.
Okay,
of the contract.
And I guess the other question is, in this case, the staff in the bid package was very direct that these late changes were not going to be allowed. It's very clear on the face of the bid specifications, the bid package, and I would like to have some understanding as to why on this particular contract we're not allowing that kind of change, and whether there was particular considerations with respect to this project and funding for this project that made a stringent application of those bid specifications important institutionally for the authority. If someone wants to take that question.
So Commissioner Trotter, great question. So in this case, this major interchange project that we've been waiting for a long time, the idea was we backed the dates out from September's board meeting so that we could award the contract at the September board meeting, have a groundbreaking, because a lot of this dollars came from the Senate Bill 1. And so we wanted it, because without Senate Bill 1, this project never would have gone, I can't say never, but it would have been many years before we got this project under construction. So as Senate Bill 1 was passed, we accelerated the design. And then when we got to the advertising time frame, we got the allocations of dollars from the state through the California Transportation Commission. We had backed out the time between the September board meeting to when we advertised the project. So we took out that you have extra days because we wanted to advertise and award that at the September board meeting. And then when we got involved when the error was made, we got involved in the protest. We threw the schedule out, and so we even held a groundbreaking date in the future, and that's gone now too.
So the hope had been that the groundbreaking would occur, before Election Day or very shortly thereafter?
Before Election Day. So everything was designed to happen before Election Day because the major funder of this is actually the state.
And so the only reason it didn't get awarded in September is because of Flatiron's bid protest?
We had to analyze the protest. So it delayed and delayed and delayed because we kept getting more letters. And so there reached a point when we know we couldn't do a groundbreaking before the Election Day.
Thank you. And I just want to make one other observation, and that is it's been suggested by the protester that somehow the authority board members have been kept in the dark about all this, and I want to dispel that notion. The staff report is very thorough, and also we were being copied by Flatiron and its attorney throughout this process on all their correspondence. In fact, I remember seeing a chastisement from Newell to somebody that they misspelled your name with a K at the end, but my point, and Danville, all right, well, whatever. My point, I guess, is this. The authority and its board members actually takes this very seriously, and some of us actually read this stuff and have been aware of this stuff for weeks now. So the idea that we aren't aware of the decision before us and of the options, and that this was not communicated by staff properly through the staff report or otherwise is not factually accurate.
Thank you, Commissioner Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add a slightly different perspective to this. When we approved going to the eBid program a year or so ago, we did it for several reasons. One, we wanted to be more efficient. We wanted to help our contractors give us complete bids and make sure that things were accurate and complete at the time of submittal. We also wanted to be 100% transparent so that Nobody saw anybody's bid until after the deadline. And then everybody sees everything together. It's all online, it's all open, it's transparent. The fact that this bid software has the ability to identify an error and lead the bidder to that error and help them figure out what they have to fix is so different than the way it was done when they were all submitted on paper. And everybody had to hope that they got it all done before they slapped it on Ivan's desk. So we made a decision that when the bids come in, they are final for these kinds of errors. There are some that I understand are maybe minor, but frankly, this is not a minor deal. We said no changes. And I agree with my colleague, Newell Arnrich, that this is highly unfortunate that someone will wait until there's 17 seconds left on the clock. These bids are sealed. Nobody's going to sneak a peek at anything if you do it 5 hours ahead of time and have all the time in the world to make any corrections that might be highlighted. I understand the bid process. My husband was in the construction industry for a very long time. He submitted those bids. He received those bids. And I know the frustration of bid day. It can get really crazy. But that's all about planning and setting your deadline for your subcontractors far enough ahead of the deadline for you to submit your bid that you have time to do it properly. So I'm not very sympathetic to this argument because, as Newell very wisely said, this is forcing us to spend $1 million that we would have preferred not to. And, you know, we have no problem. We would have loved to have had Flatiron as a builder and save us the $1 million, but you know what? The rules are the rules for everybody. And I am not inclined to reject the bids and go back out because everyone has seen the initial bids. And that doesn't seem like a fair process to anyone to ask all those bidders to go back and redo their bids all over again and spend that kind of time. The whole point of having a competitive bidding process is to get the best price possible. If we have to go back out after everybody's seen the bids, I don't think we'll get those prices again. And I'm not willing to set a precedent to reconsider every single bid that comes in. When the bid deadline is there, that's the bid, period, done. So.
Is that a motion?
Sure.
Second.
There's a motion by Pierce, second by Arnrich.
I think we need a better statement of the motion than that.
A motion to award the bid to Brosmer.
It's to adopt the resolution.
To adopt the resolution, yes, awarding the bid to Brosmer.
It's Resolution 18-59P.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Now that the motion's been properly stated, I'll second a proper motion.
Thank you.
And I just have one observation to make and a question for staff, and that is, although we are, I think I want to endorse what Julie is saying about how we would have, with a proper bid response from Flatiron, been happy to award the contract to them. There probably are financial and other reasons why getting into the habit of rejecting all these bids and rebidding again might actually have adverse consequences to the authority and our constituents greatly in excess of that $1 million. If staff wishes to comment on that. Randy, if you have something to say there, I would appreciate that.
Well, commissioners, you strive to be an owner of choice, and so you look at that last contract, we had 9 bidders, and all the way from Los Angeles. So it's, I think that, and I've been asking, we want to get the bids in, and I think the minute you start canceling contracts and things like that, what happens is it not only kind of sends, I think, the wrong message to the industry, but it costs them money as well. They've got to put another bid together, and the efforts, so we don't put something out, a contract out that we're unsure if we're going to award, because that's the last thing. So we pull everything after we award, and contractors spend money, or our A&E firms spend money, and then we don't ever give them a contract. Then they're going to ask, what is that team doing? What is CCTA doing? And I think it sends a wrong message. I think we've been consistent overall in the way we administer contracts. We did that because we know we accept the risk, but we also control the work. We control the schedule. We control, hopefully, the cost. We try to work on that and make sure we deliver a quality project and for the people of Contra Costa. So I think that I know that this is the right direction. The minute we start, we have a big protest, and then you throw that bid out. The next time you have a big protest, you're going to throw that out. So I don't think that's a good option when you have a responsive second bidder. You have an alternative. And in this case, you have an alternative. It does cost us more dollars, but it's the lowest responsive bid.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Andre?
Yeah, thank you. Just a brief comment. I think it's really important for our agency to, again, be consistent. That's our right. And to staff, to all of us as commissioners, we want to have the highest level of integrity as an organization to be fair. And the software, as Julie's pointed out, specifically did that. Had Flatiron submitted their bid even 2 minutes before the deadline, because it takes about 80 seconds to go back through to fix those errors, we would not be sitting here today. 80 seconds is what the issue was. But the fact is because the implications, regardless if you can get letters and talk to people afterwards, whether or not, it prevents any things from jeopardizing the integrity of those bids. That's why we highlighted those things. That's why the software is saying it's adamant. You cannot change that. That's how we keep our agency in the best light. It's an unfortunate circumstance. I hope that we do not have hard feelings to Flatiron in any way. We'd love to see Flatiron. Flatiron has an incredibly great reputation in building projects. I hope to see them back. But please note, our rules are tough. We're going to stick to them.
Okay. Any other comments before the vote? So there's a motion before us, and I'm going to ask that the maker of the motion will clarify so that we are very clear as to what we're voting on. She did.
Okay, I'll come back here to the item, and that is to move approval of Resolution 1859P to authorize the award agreement number 505 to Brussels Marin Wall for construction services on the Interstate 680 State Route 4 Interchange Improvements Phase 3. And I can only say hallelujah. We've been working for over 25 years to get this project going. We finally have the money. Let's get this project built.
I agree. And I would like a roll call vote since this is a protest.
Commissioner Abelson? Yes. Commissioner Hudson? Aye. Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Commissioner Romick?
Yes.
Commissioner Pierce?
Yes.
Chair Glover?
Yes.
Vice Chair Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Hosking?
Yes.
Commissioner Trotter?
Aye.
Okay.
The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. And congratulations. And as Julie says, let's get to work on this. Okay. So the next item before us is the seeking approval to award an agreement to prepare the Contra Costa electric vehicle readiness plan. And this will be presented by Peter Engel.
Thank you, Chair Glover and Commissioners. Good evening. Peter Engel, Director of Programs for CCTA. On July 18th, 2018, the authority authorized the release of RFP 18-8 to select a consulting firm to prepare the Contra Costa electrical vehicle readiness plan. As you recall, we received a $200,000 grant from the California Energy Commission to help fund the preparation of this study. We received 6 responses to the RFP. We were very happy about that. The evaluation team chose to review 3 of those responses, and the recommendation we are making tonight is to award agreement number 1513 with the Cadmus Group. The Cadmus Group has an office out of Oakland. They've done a significant number of these readiness plans throughout the country. They also have a sub that has done more than one of the workforce development plans specific to electric vehicle infrastructure, and has already started contacting 2 of our local community college campuses. So we're very excited about that. It was, after the interviews, there was 2 very closely competing agencies, and after the final score, we did select to bring forward to you the Cadmus Group. I want to introduce Philip Kraychek back here. Philip is the project manager for the Cadmus Group. He works out of the Oakland office, and he will lead the project from their side if you choose to award the contract tonight. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any comments or questions?
I would move the item.
Second.
There's a motion by Unrich, second by Pierce. On the question, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes. Next item before us is commissioner comments. No commissioner comments?
Except for mine.
Commissioner Hudson.
It seems like I've said this before, but attended a electric vehicle symposium in Japan. Seems like a month ago, it was a couple of weeks ago. Very informative. Brought some information back to a business park in San Ramon, and they're looking to buy into these 2-wheel electric vehicles that are coming very fast. I'd strongly suggest, I'm giving them a very early heads up for May of 2019, that our executive director be at this one. I mean, we may have to fly him out of the country, but what the heck.
Okay, any other commissioners? No chair's report. Randy, any ex officio members' reports? Okay, or comments? Okay. Randy, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Sheriff Glover and Commissioners. I wanted to take a moment to introduce Wilma Van Hook. Wilma is our latest hire. You've been with the authority almost 6 months now? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Feels like she's part of the family already.
Yeah, okay, 8 weeks? Has it been 8 weeks? Okay, 8 weeks.
Seems like a lifetime.
Yeah, she's a welcome addition to our team. Do you want to say anything? You sure? We always allow you to say something. Okay. All right. And then I've got some other good news or great news. Terry Ann Grover, we nominated her for the 2018 San Francisco Bay Area Admin Awards, and she's one of the finalists in the category of the Achiever Award. So, yeah. And then Brian Kelleher is our acting chief financial officer. I know that's a shock some of you, but I mean, I think he's got great potential, and it's part of our succession planning process is to get our people ready to go, and I think he's got the right stuff. And so we've named him acting, and hopefully after 6 months we can talk about making him permanent. And so that's kind of the strategy. So welcome, Brian. Thank you for accepting that mini promotion, I guess.
And for the record, he is from Brentwood.
You remind us, yes, yeah.
Yes, and also for the record, when I first read your email, Randy, I didn't have my glasses on, and so I read it initially as acting CEO.
That's great. Congratulations, Brian.
And then I read it again. I said, no, I just need to learn how to read.
So I was at the ITS World Congress. I was asked to speak 4 times at the World Congress. The first, I was invited back to participate in AASHTO Day. It's the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. And I actually participated in the first 7 as a Caltrans employee. And it's been almost 15 years. It was the 15th annual, so about 8 years. and they invited me back, so I got to moderate the final session to kind of close out this bilateral process between the Europeans, the Asians, and also the Americans. So it was a great opportunity to get re-engaged in what they're doing in Denmark. There's a gazillion people. I think there's more bicycles in Denmark than there are the population. So everybody owns 2 or 3 bicycles. Their biking path system operates fantastically. They've got separate bridges for bicyclists. You have to literally watch both ways on the bike paths because they're well used. I think I asked the question, do riders of bicycles ever get pulled over for drunk bicycle riding? And they said never, but it's illegal. And also illegal is putting a device on your bicycle so that you can help guide you somewhere, because you're not supposed to look and be texting as you ride bicycles. But I saw a lot of people with headphones, but just a lot of bicycle riders. And then I participated on a mobility as a service panel. And then I participated on, as you can see, defining smart cities. And then I also participated in a bilateral meeting with the city of Copenhagen. The city of Copenhagen is struggling with a lot of the things that you are as well in your cities and towns. How to deal with the electronic scooters, how to deal with the e-bicycles, how to leverage that technology. And so there's a lot of lessons to be learned, I think, from the Europeans about how to put people safely in other modes and then get them used to that. And so we're starting down the process of trying to build a bicycle garden to teach young people how to ride their bicycles properly. They have a very famous bicycle garden in Denmark. I wasn't able to get there. And so it was a great conference. And then we had a conference with a guy from the CEO from Local Motors. They want to build a 10-acre additive manufacturing plant, and we've offered him the opportunity. We had a meeting with him again today, and to sign an agreement with Local Motors to bring that plant here to Contra Costa County and create some jobs. But they also they are having a challenge on where they want to roll out their technology, and so Gomentum Station, we think, is a natural location. So we're getting close to having hopefully an agreement with them to roll out their technology at Gomentum, and then ultimately we want to try it as a feeder system between the city of Martinez, their Amtrak station, and the city of Concord, their BART station. So imagine if we can have a reliable linkage, a low-speed linkage that uses electric motors to provide access between the two BART system and the Amtrak system going to and from Sacramento and within our BART system, and use that as a model. And so we're excited about that opportunity. So we just met with Jay today. And then the California Transportation Commission, as I mentioned before, we hosted the commissions from Washington State, Oregon, and California. Well, Lindsay and I got invited back to brief the staff on how their policies can get more or written differently to allow for innovation. Because currently, you don't see, hey, we're going to fund innovation. Hey, we'll fund a bridge. Hey, we'll fund rehabilitation of a roadway. But there's no extra points for leveraging technology or innovation. And so we've submitted on their congested corridor. Tim did a great job of developing a multi-page approach to try to make comments on their latest congested corridor policy to help allow for bicycle investment, mode shift investment, transit investment, connection investments. And so we're trying to help the commission, and I don't know if they're going to take our comments, but we spent a lot of time on that effort. And then lastly, well, two things. One, we met with the Consulate General of Canada. They want to join Gomentum Station, and they want to actually have an incubator here to bring Canadian companies down to the United States and vice versa, and use Gomentum Station as kind of an incubator or center of excellence, if you will. And then we had a great rollout of this technology that we signed at Gomentum Station called Helix. It's an inductive charging system where a receiver is placed into an electric vehicle, and you can actually put their transformer device in a curb and just park your car or a stop bar, and it charges your vehicle. And so this is part and parcel to our next generation of making sure the infrastructure's in place to support an electric vehicle fleet in Contra Costa County. We don't want just today's technology. We want also tomorrow's technology embedded in that plan so that we're ready for the future, and it doesn't look like all we did was put our eggs in one basket and put all type 2 chargers and or fast chargers. So we're talking about things like hopefully power walls, solar panels, charging your vehicle at home. And so we have a whole kind of thought process on this next generation of charging. So I know we only have a contract for a small amount of money, but hopefully you do great things with that money. So with that, and the last thing is I was a keynote speaker at Metrans. And the only reason why I say that is it's their 20th anniversary. I've been with Metrans for almost a full 20 years, but we produced a PowerPoint that Lindsay and her team developed, and it's really good and we should show it to you one of these days. It kind of goes back in history about the movement of freight and how we move goods and what we thought was innovative in the old days, and think about what's happening tomorrow with delivery by drones and things like that. And so if you're ever interested in that, we'd be happy to present that to you. Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Chair? Yes. Randy, and I'm sure Dave's talked to you about it, or at least mentioned it. As we both sit on the Air Board, we had a report today from our Technology Information Office, Implementation Office, and there was some discussion there. They were talking about some new strategies or concepts, and the conversation was around old versus new. What you're talking about, I'm not sure our staff at Air Board is even aware of. And so at some point, I would request that you yourself or someone from your staff reach out to the Air Board to update them, brief them on all of this. They're not a transportation company, but we do deal with a lot of this technology and giving out grants. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel. And after what I heard today, I mean, we're talking about major industries and what they need, but one of the things is we want to look forward to providing grants on some of this infrastructure you're talking about. So if you haven't talked to them already, if you call Jack Broadbent, and I want it to be peer-to-peer, he can bring his staff in, but I think it would be very important that they know what you're, because I think of us as a leader, you as a leader. I don't know what the other agencies are doing as far as, Alameda County or what have you, but you're around and about, and they need to know about this.
Sure. Our team would be happy to brief anybody, including the Air Board, because I think you're right. We have some information that we take for granted that others may not have access to.
Well, that's it. I'm listening to you, and I'm like, I didn't hear any of that today, especially when you're talking about cars being able to pull up to the curb and charge on their own. And we were talking about a new member just got a new Bolt. And Supervisor Joya got a Bolt. And the issue is, do you use the slow charger or the fast charger? And how many miles do you get on it? Which is great. I thought that was the latest. And then you're talking about some other things. They're pretty with it. I'm not trying to put them down, but I just think we might as well take advantage of your knowledge.
Be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone have any comments on the correspondence? Okay. In your package, you'll find the associated committee reports. So at this time, we stand adjourned. Our next meeting will be November 14th, same place, same time. And good luck in the elections for all those candidates out there.